How does a future daughter-in-law decide a father does not fit the celebration and say he is not the same status? What do you do when your own son stays quiet while she makes it public? Why did one calm call to my financial advisor change the entire room within 30 minutes? My name is Glen, and I am 58 years old. I am the kind of man people do not notice. I dress plain, I drive an older car, I do not like loud places, and I do not like to compete for attention. I have always believed that respect is earned with steady actions, not with big talk. My son Aaron is 29, he is smart and kind, but he avoids conflict. When he was younger, he could hold his ground. As he got older, he learned a different habit. He learned to keep the peace, even when the peace costs him something. I did not see that clearly until this year. Aaron got engaged to Marissa. She is 27. She looks polished in a way I never learned. Her hair is always perfect. Her phone is always in her hand. She speaks quickly, like time is a prize, and she owns it. At first, I tried to tell myself she was only nervous. I tried to be fair. I tried to give her space. But the small signs started early. When we first met, she asked what I did. I answered in a simple way. I said I had worked for a long time, and I kept my life quiet. She nodded like she understood, but her eyes moved past me. She turned to Aaron and asked another question. It felt like I had been filed away in her mind. Still, I stayed polite. I invited them for dinner. I asked about their plans. I offered help in a calm way. Marissa would smile and say they had it covered. Her mother, Lydia, would send messages later with a list of ideas, like she was already running the show. Her father, Ronald, would send short notes that sounded friendly, but they always carried a test inside them. I could feel it, even when the words looked normal. On a Tuesday, Aaron asked me to meet him at a small diner near my house. It was one of those places with bright windows and simple food. The staff knew regulars by face. The coffee was always hot, and the plates were always plain white. I liked it there because nothing was trying to impress anyone. Aaron arrived 10 minutes late. He sat down fast, like he had been rehearsing what to say. He kept looking at his phone on the table. I asked him if everything was all right. He said it was fine. Then he said Marissa was serious about the engagement celebration and the wedding planning. He said her family had a certain way of doing things. I listened and let him talk. He said he wanted the day to feel smooth. He said he wanted everyone to get along. He said he needed me to keep things simple. He said Marissa did not like surprises, and her parents did not like confusion. I asked him what simple meant. He said it meant I should not ask too many questions in front of her family. He said it meant I should not bring up money. He said it meant I should not make it look like I was trying to control anything. That word, control, landed in my mind and stayed there. I had not tried to control anything. I had not even asked for details. I had just asked where they needed me. I had asked what traditions they wanted. I had asked how I could support them. I told Aaron I understood. I told him I did not plan to argue with anyone. I told him I only wanted to be included as his father. He nodded, but his shoulders stayed tense. He looked tired. He looked like he was carrying someone else's expectations on his back. After we ate, Aaron said there was a venue tour later that week. He said Marissa wanted me to attend, but only for a short time. He said it would mean a lot if I showed up and smiled. He said it would help the mood. I noticed he did not say it would mean a lot if I spoke. He did not say it would mean a lot if I had a place. He only said smile. I agreed. Not because I enjoyed it, but because I wanted to see things with my own eyes. Sometimes you need one clear moment to understand what is happening. You can hear about it for weeks and still doubt yourself. Then you see it once, and the fog is gone. The day of the tour, I arrived early and parked across the street from the hotel. The venue was connected to a luxury hotel downtown. The lobby had tall ceilings and soft lighting. The floors were polished stone that reflected people like a mirror. The air smelled like clean fabric and expensive soap. I stood near a large plant and waited, hands calm at my sides. When Marissa walked in, she did not look for me first. She went straight to the front desk. She spoke to the staff with quick certainty. She told them the name of the booking and asked for the coordinator. She pointed once like she was directing traffic. The staff responded fast. They smiled and nodded and moved. Aaron arrived behind her. He saw me and gave me a small smile. He started to walk toward me, but Marissa turned and said something to him. He stopped and turned back to her. He looked at me again, like he wanted to split himself in two. Lydia and Ronald came in a few minutes later. Lydia wore a bright outfit and carried a large bag like it was part of the performance. Ronald shook my hand and asked how I was doing. His voice was friendly, but his eyes scanned me. He looked at my jacket. He looked at my shoes. He looked at my watch. It was quick, but it was clear. Lydia greeted me with a brief smile. She said she was glad I could make it. Then she turned to the coordinator and asked about the room capacity, the lighting, the menu. She talked as if the event was already hers. We followed the coordinator through a hallway. The hallway walls had framed photos of past events. I saw groups of people holding glasses and laughing. I saw couples posing with wide smiles. Every photo looked like a magazine. The carpet was thick under my shoes. The sounds of our steps were soft. The coordinator opened a set of doors and showed us the main ballroom. It was large, with high windows and long curtains. There were chandeliers that looked like warm stars. The coordinator explained how tables could be arranged. He explained where the dance floor might go. He explained where a stage could be placed for speeches. Marissa moved through the room like she was already hosting it. She pointed to corners and nodded. She asked the coordinator for options. She spoke fast, and the coordinator answered in the same pace. Lydia followed her, adding suggestions. Ronald walked near them and kept smiling. I stayed a few steps back. I watched. I listened. I did not interrupt. I knew Aaron wanted calm, and I was not there to compete. I was there to understand. At one point, Marissa asked the coordinator about a private space for the families. She said she wanted a moment during the celebration for family only. She used that phrase with emphasis. The coordinator nodded and said there was a smaller lounge near the ballroom. Marissa turned to Aaron and said she wanted that moment to feel special. She said it should be the main families together. She said it should be clean and elegant. Aaron nodded. His mouth opened like he wanted to add something, but then he closed it and nodded again. The coordinator led us toward the lounge. We walked through another hallway. This one was narrower and quieter. The lighting was softer. I could hear faint music from somewhere far away. As we approached the lounge door, Marissa slowed down. She looked at me for the first time in a direct way. Her expression was polite on the surface, but the message underneath was not polite. She said the lounge moment would be just for the people who matched the atmosphere. She said she did not want any awkward energy. She said she wanted the celebration to look a certain way. I stood still and waited. I have learned that when people are about to be unkind, they often circle the words before they land. They want to see if you will give them an excuse. I did not give her one. Marissa then said something that I will not forget. She said we were not the same status. She said it like it was a simple fact. She said it was not personal, but it was about image. She said she needed the day to show a certain level, and my presence in the key moments did not help that. She also said she wanted the photos to feel consistent. She said the people in the main photos needed to match the look. She said it would be better if I stayed in the background and joined later when things were more casual. I felt a quiet pressure behind my eyes, but my face stayed calm. I did not raise my voice. I did not step forward. I did not make a scene. I simply looked at Aaron. Aaron did not look back right away. His eyes went to the carpet, then his eyes went to Marissa. He gave a small nod, almost without thinking. It was the kind of nod you give when you are trying to end a difficult moment. It was also the kind of nod that tells someone they can keep going. Lydia watched closely. Her lips pressed together in a satisfied way. Ronald stayed neutral, but he did not step in. The coordinator looked confused, like he could tell something was wrong, but did not know what he was allowed to do. I told Marissa I understood. I said I did not want to cause awkward energy. I said I could give them space. I said I would wait outside the lounge while they talked. Marissa relaxed immediately. She said she appreciated my understanding. She said this was how things were done in her family. Lydia nodded like a judge approving a decision. Aaron exhaled like he had been holding his breath. They went into the lounge. The door closed softly. I stood alone in the hallway with the coordinator. The quiet in that hallway felt heavy. The coordinator gave me a careful look, like he wanted to apologize without speaking. I walked back toward the main ballroom at a slow pace. I did not rush. I did not stomp. I just moved. My hands were steady. My mind was steady too, but not in the way people might think. I was not calm because I was fine with it. I was calm because clarity had started to settle in. Near a side table, I took out my phone. I checked the messages. I saw updates from Aaron earlier. I saw a reminder about the tour. I did not see anything else. Then I noticed something small. There was a family group chat for planning that I had heard about, but I could not find it on my phone. I searched again. Nothing. In that moment, I understood the pattern in a clean way. It was not one comment. It was not one awkward sentence. It was a plan. It was a slow removal. It was a decision made by someone who believed I would accept any role as long as I stayed quiet. I put my phone back in my pocket. I looked at the ballroom doors. I could hear faint laughter from inside the lounge now. I could picture Marissa smiling, feeling in control. I could picture Aaron smiling too, trying to keep everything smooth. I did not hate them in that moment. I did not wish them harm. What I felt was something simpler and colder. I felt the end of my willingness to be erased. When the lounge door opened again, Marissa came out first. She looked pleased. She asked if I was ready to rejoin. Her tone sounded generous, like she was offering me a favor. Aaron followed behind her. He gave me a small, apologetic look and then quickly looked away. I nodded and walked with them back into the ballroom. I kept my face neutral. I kept my posture relaxed. I listened to the coordinator explain more options. I let Marissa and Lydia talk about decor and lighting and table settings like they were building a stage. All the while, I was no longer confused. I was no longer hoping it would fix itself. I was simply observing. I was taking note of what was said, how it was said, and who stayed silent when it mattered. I was learning exactly what kind of respect they thought I deserved. After that tour, I drove home in silence. I kept the radio off. I did not want noise. I wanted to hear my own thoughts. When I got to my house, I took off my shoes, washed my hands, and stood in my kitchen for a long time. The room was quiet. The light above the sink was warm. Everything looked normal, but I did not feel normal. I started thinking about how we got here. It did not happen in one day. It happened in small steps, like a door closing slowly. You can ignore it at first. Then one day you realize you are on the wrong side of it. I met Marissa 2 years ago. Aaron brought her to a casual lunch at a cafe near his apartment. He seemed proud and nervous at the same time. Marissa arrived a few minutes late and acted like it was nothing. She greeted Aaron first. Then she greeted me. Her smile was quick, like a light turning on and off. She asked me what I did for work. I gave a short answer. I said I had a long career and now I kept life simple. I expected a few follow-up questions, maybe about what I liked or what I did on weekends. She did not ask any of that. Instead, she asked Aaron about his goals and his path. She asked him where he wanted to be in 5 years. She spoke like she was planning a schedule. At first, I told myself she was ambitious. Ambition is not a bad thing. Aaron is ambitious too, in his own quiet way. But I noticed something else. Marissa listened with her eyes more than her ears. She watched posture. She watched clothes. She watched who spoke and who stayed quiet. She watched who people seemed to respect. Later that day, Aaron called me. He said Marissa liked me. He said she thought I was calm. He said her family respected calm men. I almost laughed at that, but I did not. I only told him I was glad. A month later, I met her parents for the first time. They invited me to a dinner at a nice restaurant. I arrived early. I wore my best jacket. It was not expensive, but it was clean and fitted. I sat at the table and waited. When they arrived, Lydia hugged Marissa and kissed Aaron's cheek. Then she shook my hand. She said it was good to meet me. Then she asked where I lived. When I told her the neighborhood, her eyebrows lifted for half a second. It was small, but I saw it. Ronald was polite. He asked about my health and my work history. He asked how long I had been in my field. He asked if I owned my home. He asked about my retirement plans. He said it all with a smile, but the questions were not casual. They were measuring questions. I answered calmly. I did not brag. I did not list achievements. I never liked that kind of talk. I believe people should be able to live without constantly proving themselves. But I could tell they did not think that way. For them, information was currency. That dinner ended fine on the surface. Everyone smiled. Everyone said it was nice. But when I got home, Aaron texted me and said Marissa's mother thought I was very modest. He added a small note saying her family liked high standards. I asked what that meant. He said it meant they cared about appearances and planning. He said it was not personal. Over time, not personal became the excuse for everything. When wedding talk began, I offered help in a simple way. I told Aaron and Marissa that I could contribute. I said I could help with deposits if they needed it. I said I could handle small costs quietly so they did not feel pressure. Marissa smiled and said they had it under control. Then Lydia started sending ideas. She sent photos of venues, photos of decorations, lists of must-have items. She did not ask me what we did in our family. She did not ask what traditions mattered to Aaron. She talked as if the wedding belonged to her side only. Aaron tried to balance it. He would call me privately and say he appreciated me. He would say he did not want me to feel left out. But in public, he stayed quiet. He would look at Marissa before answering. He would soften his words. He would avoid conflict, even when the conflict was simply someone being unfair. I saw this pattern again and again. At one point, Marissa invited me to a dress-fitting appointment, then acted surprised when I arrived. She said she thought only the women would be there. She said maybe I should wait outside. I told her it was fine and I could leave. I did not want to argue, but it stayed with me. It was not about the fitting. It was about her control of who belonged where. Another time, there was a dinner at Aaron's apartment with a few of Marissa's friends. I came with a gift, A simple set of kitchen tools because Aaron liked to cook. Marissa looked at the gift and said it was practical. Then she laughed lightly and said it was very him. I understood what she meant. She meant it was not flashy. She meant it did not match the image. Her friends smiled like they understood an inside joke. I stayed calm. I asked one of the friends about their job. I asked another about travel. I kept it easy. But I noticed that Marissa's friends spoke to me like I was a distant relative, not the father of the man she planned to marry. They would look at me, then look away quickly, like eye contact was too serious. A few weeks after that, I heard about a planning chat. Aaron mentioned it by accident. He said the group chat had a lot of updates. He said it was hard to keep track. I asked if I was in it. He paused. Then he said Marissa started it with her mother and the planner, and it grew. He said he would add me. He said he forgot. Days passed. I was never added. When I asked again, Aaron said Marissa thought it would be simpler if I got the main points from him directly. He said she did not want too many opinions. He said it was just easier. Easier, that word again. I started noticing how often I heard it. Easier to keep me out. Easier to avoid explaining. Easier to treat me like a guest who should be grateful for any seat. I tried to talk to Aaron about it in a calm way. I invited him over for coffee. I told him I did not need control. I did not need attention. But I did need basic respect. I told him I wanted to be included as family. Not because of pride, but because family matters to me. Aaron listened and looked tired. He said he understood. He said he did not want to hurt me. He said Marissa was stressed. He said her parents were paying for many things, and that gave them a strong voice. He said he did not want to start a fight that could damage the relationship. I asked him what he thought marriage was. I asked him if he planned to avoid every hard moment forever. I asked him if he thought staying quiet would keep peace, or if it would train people to push more. He did not answer directly. He just said he wanted everyone to be happy. That is when I began to understand something important. Aaron was not choosing between right and wrong. He was choosing between tension now and tension later. He was choosing the option that felt quieter today. Marissa noticed his pattern too. People like her notice patterns fast. They test boundaries and see what happens. Every time Aaron stayed quiet, her confidence grew. Then came the venue tour incident, where she said the line about status. That was not a mistake. That was not stress. That was a message. It was her way of saying she could decide my role. After that, I watched more carefully. I noticed how Lydia spoke to staff. She would say we, as if she owned every decision. She would say the event needed to look right. She would say certain people needed to be placed in the best positions. She would say presentation, like it was a moral value. I noticed how Ronald rarely corrected anything. He would smile and let Lydia lead. He would step in only when there was risk to their image. He was not loud, but he was strategic. I noticed how Marissa spoke about circles. She described guests as if they had levels. She talked about inner circle and outer circle. She talked about who should be near the front. She talked about who should be seen in the right photos. When she said those things, she always glanced at me for a second, like she wanted to see if I understood where she placed me. It was a quiet pressure, a silent warning. And the hardest part was Aaron's silence. He was not cruel. He was not trying to erase me, but he was allowing it. He was acting like my discomfort was a price worth paying. He was treating my place in his life like something flexible. In the weeks after the tour, there were more small cuts. A dinner invitation would arrive late, after everyone else already agreed. A schedule would change without anyone telling me. I would show up and realize I had missed a family moment by 10 minutes, and nobody would explain it. Once, at a cafe, Marissa introduced Aaron to someone and spoke about his future in glowing terms. Then she introduced me as just Glen. No his father. No warmth. Just a name, like I was a neighbor. I did not correct her. I did not want a scene, but I noticed it. I noticed everything. One evening, Aaron called me and asked for a favor. He said Marissa's parents wanted certain upgrades. He said there were costs that came up fast. He said it would help if I could contribute to keep things smooth. I told him I would think about it. I did not say yes right away. I did not say no. I just listened. He sounded relieved that I did not argue. Then he said something that made my stomach tighten. He said he did not want Marissa to feel like I was trying to buy a role. I asked what that meant. He said Marissa felt sensitive about status. He said she did not want it to look like I was forcing my way into decisions by paying. He said it would be best if I helped quietly and stayed out of the main planning. In that moment, I understood the trap. They wanted support, but not my presence. They wanted comfort, but not my voice. They wanted me useful, but not visible. I stayed calm on the phone. I told Aaron I understood what he was saying. I told him I loved him. I told him I would handle things properly. When I ended that call, I stood in my kitchen again, looking at the same sink, the same light, the same quiet room. It felt like my life had been reduced to a simple question. Was I going to accept being treated like a wallet and a background figure just to avoid tension? Or was I going to insist on being treated like a father with respect through the systems that people like Marissa actually listen to? I did not make a speech. I did not shout. I just took a slow breath and began to organize my thoughts. After I made that decision in my kitchen, I did not suddenly become a different person. I did not start acting loud. I did not start demanding attention. I simply stopped pretending this would fix itself. The next week, I got a message from Aaron that sounded cheerful on the surface. He said they had a planning session with the event planner. He said things were moving fast. He said Marissa was excited. Then he added that I did not need to attend because it was mostly details. He said he would update me after. I asked him what the session was about. He said it was about seating, timing, and vendor coordination. I told him those were not small details. I told him that was the shape of the whole celebration. He replied that Marissa's mother wanted to keep the group tight so decisions would be quick. He said it was not meant to exclude me. I did not argue. I only said I understood. But I wrote the date down in my notebook and circled it. Not because I wanted revenge, because I wanted a clear record. If someone is always forgetting you, the best response is to stop relying on their memory. Later that day, I received a short email from the event planner, Kendra. It was polite and professional. She said she was glad to meet the families soon. Then she listed the key contacts for decisions. She listed Marissa. She listed Lydia. She listed Ronald. She listed Aaron. My name was not there. At the end, she wrote a line that made my chest feel tight. She said all approvals and changes would go through the primary contacts to avoid confusion. The wording was neutral, but the message was direct. In that system, I did not exist. I did not reply right away. I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to myself and saved it in a folder on my phone. I began naming things carefully, as if I was building a timeline for a question that would eventually need an answer. That evening, Aaron came to my house for dinner. I made simple food. I kept the tone calm. He looked stressed. He ate fast. He kept checking his phone like it might break if he looked away. Halfway through dinner, he told me Marissa's parents had opinions about the engagement celebration. He said they wanted it at a private club ballroom. He said it would look right. He said the guest list would be carefully curated. He said there would be a short moment for inner circle photos. I asked him what inner circle meant. He paused. Then he said it meant immediate family and the people Marissa's parents considered key supporters. He said it was a tradition. He said it was normal in their circles. I asked him if his father counted as immediate family. I did not raise my voice. I asked it like a plain question, like I was asking if water was wet. Aaron's face tightened. He said of course I was family. Then he quickly added that Marissa did not mean anything bad. He said she was just focused on presentation. He said the event needed to feel smooth. I told him something simple. I told him presentation is not a reason to treat people like props. I told him I did not need to stand in the center, but I would not accept being hidden like an unwanted detail. I told him I wanted him to look at what he was allowing. Aaron pushed his plate slightly away and rubbed his forehead. He said he was tired of tension. He said Marissa felt judged all the time. He said her parents were sensitive about status and wanted to protect their reputation. He said if I pushed back, it would turn into a big issue. I listened without interrupting. Then I told him a quiet truth. I told him that if a relationship cannot handle basic respect, it will struggle when real pressure arrives. I told him that avoiding conflict is not the same as building peace. I told him that silence teaches people what they can get away with. Aaron looked at me like he heard the words but did not know where to put them. Then his phone buzzed. He checked it, and his posture changed. He said he had to go. He said Marissa needed him. He stood up, gave me a quick hug, and left before the food was even cleared. When the door closed, I remained at the table. I stared at the empty chair for a moment. That chair used to hold a boy who would tell me everything. Now it held silence. 2 days later, I had the second moment that made everything clear. I received a message from Marissa directly. It was short and confident. She said she was finalizing the celebration program. She said she wanted to keep things elegant. She said the introductions would be minimal and modern. Then she wrote that she planned to acknowledge our key supporters during the opening remarks. I replied politely and asked what that meant. She answered that it meant the people who made the event possible and matched the tone. She said she did not want long speeches. She said it was not the place for anything personal or emotional. I understood what she was doing. She was setting the stage to control what family meant in public. She was creating a version of the event where her side held the microphone and my side sat quietly and smiled. I did not argue with her in writing. I simply replied that I understood her preference. Then I asked one more question. I asked where I would be seated. She responded with a seating plan description in words, not a file. She said I would be at a family-adjacent table near the side. She said it would be comfortable and easy for me. She said it would allow the main family table to remain consistent for photos. Family adjacent. That phrase sat in my mind like a stamp. I read it again to make sure I did not misunderstand. It was not a mistake. It was a deliberate label. It was her way of placing me in a box, then sealing it shut. I did not respond right away. I put the phone down. I walked into my garage and stood there, surrounded by tools and old boxes and the quiet smell of dust. I felt my face warm for a moment, but the feeling passed quickly. Not because I did not care, but because something else replaced it. Clarity. I realized they were not simply being rude, they were building a structure. In that structure, I was useful when money was needed, and invisible when image was needed. They were training everyone around them to accept that structure. The planner, the venue staff, the extended family, even Aaron. Once I saw the structure, I stopped reacting to individual moments. I started thinking in systems, the same way I always have. If the problem is built through systems, it must be corrected through systems. That night, I went to my home office. I did not slam drawers. I did not pace. I turned on the desk lamp and opened a clean folder. I labeled it with the date of the venue tour. Then I created sections inside it, messages, emails, dates, conversations. I made it neat, not dramatic. I also opened my calendar and looked at the engagement celebration date. I had it saved already from Aaron's earlier message. I highlighted it in a quiet color, not red, not loud, just enough to stand out when I looked at the month. Then I did something I had avoided for weeks. I stopped trying to earn respect from people who only understand leverage. I called my sister Elaine. I told her I needed her honest opinion. I explained what had happened without exaggerating it. I told her about the status comment, the group chat exclusion, the planner email, and the family-adjacent table. Elaine listened and let me speak. Then she said something that felt painful and helpful at the same time. She said Marissa was not confused about me. She said Marissa had made a choice. She said the question now was what choice I would make. Elaine also reminded me of something about myself. She said I always keep things quiet until it matters. She said I do not threaten. I simply act. She said if I was finally opening a folder, it meant I was done asking politely. I told her I did not want chaos. I told her I did not want to embarrass my son. Elaine replied that sometimes the fastest way to stop long-term harm is to let the truth be seen. After that call, I sat in my office chair and looked at the folder again. I did not feel excited. I did not feel proud. I felt focused. Like a man standing at the start of a long walk he has already decided to finish. The next morning, I took a drive and parked on a quiet street near the bank. I did not go inside yet. I sat in the car and looked at my phone. I opened my contacts and paused on a name I had not called in a long time, Ms. Patel. She was my financial advisor, and she was good at her work. She was also calm. She did not make emotional choices. She did not chase drama. She respected clear facts, clear authority, and clear instructions. I did not call her immediately. I looked at the screen for a moment and thought about Aaron again. I thought about the boy who used to run into my arms after school. I thought about how he now used the word smooth like it was more important than respect. Then I pressed call. When Ms. Patel answered, her voice was steady. She asked how I was doing. I told her I was fine. I told her I needed to review a few personal matters and make sure everything was aligned with my intentions. I told her I wanted the process to be correct and clean. She did not ask for gossip. She did not ask for emotional details. She asked what I wanted to protect and what I wanted to clarify. That question told me I was speaking to the right person. I told her I would come in soon. I told her I also wanted to understand how quickly certain steps could be handled if needed. I did not say more. I did not need to. The way she replied made it clear she understood my tone. She said she could make space for me within the week. She said she would be ready with options. She said I should bring any relevant notes. I thanked her and ended the call. As I sat there, I felt something settle in my chest. It was not anger. It was not sadness. It was the feeling of taking my own place back inside my own mind. Back at home, I received another message from Aaron. He said Marissa's parents were excited to meet more of my side of the family at the celebration. He said they wanted everything to feel warm. He said Marissa was under pressure and I should not take things personally. I replied with a simple line. I said I understood. I said I looked forward to celebrating with them. Then I placed my phone down, opened my folder again, and added a note. They say warm, they act cold. Keep record. Stay calm. I was not planning a scene. I was planning a correction, and I knew, deep down, that the moment would come when Marissa's chosen language of status would meet a kind of authority she could not talk over. The week after I called Ms. Patel, I moved through my days like nothing had changed. I still went to the store when I needed groceries. I still watered the plants by the window. I still answered Aaron's messages with short, polite replies. If someone watched me from the outside, they would think I was fine. Inside, I was no longer guessing. I started by making my world quieter and more organized. I cleared a drawer in my home office and placed a plain folder inside it. I put a second folder next to it. One was for messages and emails, the other was for dates and notes. I did not write anything dramatic on the covers. I used simple labels. I wanted clarity, not emotion. Each time something happened, I wrote it down in a calm way. Date, time, place. Who said what? I did not add feelings. I did not need to. The pattern spoke for itself when you lined it up. I also stopped relying on memory. Memory can get blurry when people try to confuse you, so I kept things concrete. When Marissa sent a message, I saved it. When Aaron made a claim like, "It was just a misunderstanding," I noted what happened right before that claim. When the planner said something was already decided, I recorded the moment I was not invited to decide it. I did not do this to punish anyone. I did it because I needed to protect my reality. When people keep moving your place in the room, you either accept it or you start measuring the room. 2 days later, I met Ms. Patel at a bank branch. She reserved a small meeting room with a table, 2 chairs, and a glass wall. The room had that clean smell banks always have, like paper and polish. She greeted me with a professional smile and asked how she could help. I told her I wanted to review a few arrangements and confirm that everything matched my intentions. I kept my voice even. I did not mention wedding drama. I did not speak badly about anyone. I simply said I wanted my support to go where it was respected and where it was used properly. Ms. Patel nodded and asked careful questions. She asked what I wanted to keep stable. She asked what I wanted to be flexible. She asked how fast I might need changes and what I wanted to avoid. I understood her approach. She was not there to take sides. She was there to make sure the systems matched my choices. That was exactly what I needed. We talked for a while. She wrote a few notes. She explained that there were proper steps for everything and that those steps could be followed cleanly if I stayed clear and consistent. She said if I needed something done quickly, it could be handled as long as I gave clear instructions. I told her I appreciated that. I told her I wanted things to remain calm and proper. She said she understood. When I left the bank, I sat in my car for a minute with my hands on the wheel. I did not feel excited. I felt steady. I had been treated like a quiet man with no position. Now I had confirmed, in a calm and lawful way, that I still had control over my own decisions. Back at home, I received another email from Kendra, the planner. She wrote about the next steps and asked the primary contacts to confirm final details. Again, it was Marissa, Lydia, Ronald, and Aaron. Again, I was not listed. This time, I replied. I kept it short and polite. I thanked her for the update and said I would appreciate being included in any communication related to immediate family seating and family moments. I did not accuse anyone. I did not complain. I simply stated a reasonable request. The response came later that day. Kendra wrote back with polite words that felt empty. She said she understood my request, but the planning process was already streamlined. She said too many voices could slow things down. She said Marissa and Lydia were leading the creative vision. Creative vision. That phrase was another stamp. I added the email to my folder. Then I wrote a note in my notebook. They call it vision. It is control. That evening, Aaron called me. He sounded tired. He asked why I emailed the planner. He said Marissa felt stressed by extra pressure. He said her mother thought I was trying to interfere. He said it would be easier if I just spoke to him and let him pass the information along. I told him I was not interfering. I told him I was asking to be treated like immediate family. I told him I was trying to prevent misunderstandings. I reminded him of what Marissa said in the hallway at the venue tour. I did not repeat her exact line. I did not need to. Aaron knew what it was. Aaron went quiet for a moment. Then he said, Marissa did not mean it like that. He said she was under pressure. He said her family had high expectations. He said he needed me to be patient. I asked him a calm question. I asked him if he was patient with me or if he was only asking me to carry everyone else's discomfort. He did not answer directly. He said he wanted peace. I told him I wanted peace too, but peace needs respect to hold it together. Then I told him I would not argue on the phone. I told him I loved him. I told him I would see him at the celebration. After the call, I did not feel relief. I felt a quiet sadness because I could see how deeply Aaron was trying to avoid a hard moment. He was acting like the only choices were silence or chaos. He did not see the third option yet, the option where you use proper systems and clear boundaries. The next day, I met Omar, one of Aaron's friends, for coffee. Omar had known Aaron since college. He was steady and practical. He was not dramatic. When he asked me how things were going, I told him the truth in a calm way. I said there were issues with respect. I said I was being placed at the edge, and Aaron was not pushing back. Omar listened and nodded slowly. He said he had noticed changes in Aaron too. He said Aaron used to speak more directly. He said lately Aaron sounded like he was reading from a script. Omar also said something that stayed with me. He said Marissa cared more about how the wedding looked than how it felt. I told Omar I did not want to attack anyone. I only wanted Aaron to keep his spine. Omar agreed. He said he would talk to Aaron if he got the chance. I thanked him, but I did not depend on it. I had learned not to depend on people doing the right thing just because it was right. That week, Marissa's parents hosted a small gathering at a private club lounge. It was described as casual, but everything about it was planned. The lighting was soft. The chairs were placed in perfect clusters. The staff moved like they were trained to disappear. People spoke in measured voices, like loud emotions were not allowed. I arrived on time. Aaron and Marissa arrived together. Marissa looked polished and calm, like she was already the host. Lydia greeted people with bright energy. Ronald shook hands and smiled. At first, the talk was normal. People asked about work and travel. They asked about the venue and the menu. Then Lydia guided the conversation toward the celebration and started talking about who would be seated where. She spoke about tables like they were ranks. She said some people needed to be near the front. She said some people would be better placed near the side for comfort. She kept saying, "It will photograph well," as if that was the highest goal. Then she looked at me and said they planned a nice seat for me where I could relax. She said it would be quieter there. She said I would not have to worry about speeches or attention. I told her I appreciated the thought. I kept my tone polite, but I also said, calmly, that I would like to be seated with immediate family. I said it without anger. I said it like a simple fact. The room became slightly quiet. Lydia's smile tightened. Ronald took a sip of his drink and looked away for a second. Marissa gave a small laugh that did not reach her eyes. Aaron's shoulders rose like he expected impact. Marissa said, in a soft voice, that the main table needed consistency. She said it was nothing personal. She said it was about the look. She said there were many ways to show respect, and seating was only one detail. I nodded and said I understood. Then I asked another calm question. I asked why my presence was treated like a detail. Marissa's expression stayed smooth, but her eyes changed. She said she did not want conflict. She said she wanted the celebration to feel elevated. She said certain moments were for the inner circle. She used that phrase again. I did not push it further in that room. I could see what she wanted. She wanted me to either accept it quietly or react emotionally so she could label me as the problem. I did neither. Instead, I smiled lightly, excused myself, and went to the restroom. I stood at the sink and looked at myself in the mirror. I did not look angry. I looked tired, but calm. I washed my hands slowly and reminded myself of the plan I had already chosen. When I returned, the conversation had moved on. That was fine. I did not need to win a debate. I needed to be positioned correctly for what was coming. On the drive home, I made one more quiet choice. I stopped trying to negotiate my dignity in social rooms. I focused on the rooms where decisions are recorded, confirmed, and carried out. At home, I opened my folders again. I added notes about the gathering. I wrote Lydia's exact wording as best as I could remember. I wrote Marissa's phrases. I wrote Aaron's reactions. I kept it plain. Then I backed up my phone messages to my computer. I created a clean folder with subfolders inside: emails, messages, dates. I also took screenshots of the group chat exclusion evidence I already had, including the forwarded vendor note that replaced my name with a generic label. I did not feel joy doing this. I felt like a man preparing for a storm by closing windows and checking locks, not because he enjoys storms, but because he respects reality. Near the end of the week, Aaron texted me that the engagement celebration schedule was set. He said the private club ballroom would be full. He said there would be a toast, a short speech, then photos. He told me to arrive early so things could be smooth. I replied with one sentence. I said I would be there. Then I opened my calendar and looked at the date again. I stared at it for a long moment. I could already picture the room. I could already picture Marissa's smile. I could already picture Lydia guiding people like pieces on a board. And I could already picture Ms. Patel's calm face in that bank meeting room, reminding me that proper systems exist for a reason. I turned off my desk lamp, left the folders in place, and went to bed early. I did not sleep perfectly, but I slept enough. I was not waiting for someone to include me anymore. I was preparing to make the truth visible in a way they could not brush aside. My name is Glen, and as the engagement celebration got closer, I noticed something unusual about myself. I was not nervous in the normal way. I was not pacing around the house or replaying arguments in my head. Instead, I felt like I was moving through a checklist, calm, simple, step by step. A few days before the celebration, I cleaned my kitchen and my living room more than usual. Not because I expected guests. It was for my own mind. When my space is tidy, my thoughts stay tidy too. I wiped down counters, folded laundry, and cleared old mail from the table. Then I sat in my home office and looked at my calendar again. The date was there. The private club ballroom, the time, the notes Aaron had sent. Arrive early. Smile. Keep it smooth. I kept thinking about that word. Smooth. I understood why Aaron liked it. Smooth means no raised voices. Smooth means no awkward pauses. Smooth means no visible conflict. But smooth can also mean that one person takes weight while others walk freely. Smooth can mean the strongest person is the one who absorbs everything. I was done absorbing. I did not tell Aaron that. I did not want a long phone call where he would try to talk me down. I also did not want him to warn Marissa. I wanted the reality of their choices to meet the reality of proper systems at the same time, quietly, cleanly. That week, I kept my communication simple. When Aaron texted updates, I replied with short acknowledgments. When Marissa sent a message about timing, I responded politely. When Lydia asked about my side of the family, I gave neutral answers. I did not offer extra information. I did not ask for approval. I simply stayed steady. I also prepared myself in ways people would not notice. I made sure my phone was fully updated and backed up. I cleared extra storage space. I turned off unnecessary notifications so I would not miss important calls. I checked my voicemail settings. I also made sure my car was in good condition. I filled the tank and checked the tires, not because I expected trouble, but because I wanted no small problems stealing my focus. On Thursday, Elaine came by with groceries. She did not ask a lot of questions. She just watched me for a while and then said she could tell I was centered. She asked if I was sleeping. I said I was sleeping enough. She asked if I was eating. I said I was eating fine. Elaine then asked if I was ready for whatever came. I told her I was ready to stand still and let people show who they were. I told her I was not going to fight for a chair in a room where I should already have a place. I told her I was going to let the situation speak. Elaine nodded and said she would be there at the celebration, even if they tried to position her away too. She said she did not like the way Marissa spoke about circles. She said family is not a circle you draw with a pen. She said it is something you live. Hearing her say that helped, not because I needed support to act, but because it reminded me that my view was not unreasonable. When people are trained to accept disrespect, they start questioning their own reality. A steady voice from someone you trust can pull you back onto solid ground. On Friday, I had a short call with Ms. Patel. I kept the conversation brief and practical. I asked if everything was ready on her side. She said it was. She asked if I was still comfortable with the timing. I said I was. She reminded me to keep communication calm and clear. I told her that was my plan. When the call ended, I sat in my office chair and stared at the folders in my drawer. I did not open them. I did not read through them again. I already knew what was inside. I had done the work quietly. I did not need to feed my mind with it again. I only needed to stay calm and present. That night, Aaron called. He sounded tense, but he tried to keep a cheerful tone. He said the celebration was going to be impressive. He said Marissa was proud of the plan. He said her parents were inviting some important people from their social circle. He said there would be a toast, and then photos, and then dinner. He also said he wanted me to avoid bringing up old issues. He said Marissa was sensitive, and he did not want her to feel challenged on her special day. He said everything would be fine if I just kept it light. I listened, then told him I understood. I told him I would not create conflict. I told him I was coming to support him. I told him I loved him. My voice stayed even. Aaron sounded relieved, as if he had been expecting me to argue. He thanked me and ended the call. When I put my phone down, I felt a quiet heaviness. My son was asking me to make myself smaller so his life would feel easier. He did not say it that way, but that was the truth underneath. He did not mean to hurt me, but intention does not erase impact. The next morning, I woke up early. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table. The sun was low and pale. The house was quiet. I took a slow breath and thought about what mattered most. It was not about being in the center of photos. It was not about proving anything to Marissa's parents. It was about respect. It was about whether my role as a father could be treated like a decoration that could be moved out of frame. I finished my coffee and went into my bedroom to prepare. I chose simple clothes, clean, pressed, not flashy. I wore a jacket that fit well. I shaved carefully. I trimmed my hair. I did not want to look like I was trying to impress anyone, but I did want to look like a man who respects himself. Before leaving, I checked my phone again. The family group chat was still not there. I saw messages from Aaron about parking instructions. I saw Marissa's reminder about arrival time. It was all controlled. It was all managed. It was all designed to keep the event moving in one direction. I picked up my keys and stepped outside. The air was cold. My breath looked faint as I walked to the car. I sat in the driver's seat and took one more slow breath before starting the engine. On the drive, I kept my thoughts focused and simple. I did not rehearse speeches. I did not imagine arguments. I told myself that calm is not weakness. Calm is control. I reminded myself that I was not going there to beg. I was going there to observe and to stand in my role without apology. When I arrived downtown, I parked a few streets away and walked the rest of the distance. I wanted time to settle my mind before stepping into that space. The city felt busy, but the noise stayed outside my head. I kept my pace steady. The private club building looked like it belonged to another world. The entrance was wide and polished. The staff wore formal uniforms. The lighting inside the lobby was warm and careful. Everything was designed to make people feel important. At the front desk, a staff member asked for my name. I gave it calmly. The staff member typed, then paused for a fraction of a second. His expression stayed polite, but his eyes flicked up and down, as if he was checking if I matched what he expected. He then said he would confirm. He made a quick call and spoke softly. I stood there with my hands relaxed at my sides. I did not show impatience. I did not argue. I simply waited. So after a moment, the staff member returned and said I could proceed. His smile looked practiced, but his tone had shifted slightly. It was more careful now. Not warmer, just more careful. I walked toward the ballroom entrance. I could already hear voices inside, the mix of laughter and glasses and music. I saw people in formal outfits and shiny shoes. I saw the event planner near the side, speaking with staff while holding a tablet. I also saw Aaron near the entrance. He looked relieved when he noticed me. He stepped closer and greeted me. He asked if I found the place easily. I told him I did. He asked if I was feeling all right. I told him I was fine. Marissa appeared a moment later, like she was moving between groups. She looked at me and gave a bright smile. She said she was glad I came. Her tone was light, as if the earlier moments had never happened, as if the hallway comment and the seating label and the exclusion from planning were all just fog. I returned a polite smile and said I was there for Aaron. Marissa then turned her attention to the room again. She guided Aaron toward a group of guests and introduced him with confident energy. I followed at a calm distance, not chasing, not hiding, just present. I watched how she positioned him, how she positioned herself, and how she positioned everyone else around them. Elaine arrived soon after. She walked in with steady posture and greeted me warmly. She did not look around for permission. She stood beside me like it was normal, like family is allowed to stand together. I nodded at her, grateful for the quiet support. Then the evening began to move faster. Guests filled the space. The planner signaled staff. People took photos near a decorated wall. I noticed how often Marissa looked toward the center of the room, as if she was checking the frame of an invisible camera. I stayed calm, hands relaxed, face neutral. I was not there to compete for attention. I was there to stand in my role and let the truth of the situation unfold in the proper way, at the proper time. When I stepped into the ballroom, Marissa was already working the room like it belonged to her. She moved from group to group, smiling, guiding people toward the photo wall, and signaling staff with small hand gestures. Aaron stayed close to her, like he was trying to keep up with her pace. I stayed near the edge for a moment and watched. I saw the main table set near the center, with name cards placed carefully. I also saw a smaller table near the side with a card that had my name on it, along with two distant relatives I barely knew. It was the same message, just wrapped in nicer paper. Marissa noticed me looking. She walked over and spoke in a soft voice, like she was doing me a favor. She said the seating was arranged for flow and for photos. She said the main table needed consistency. She said my seat would be quieter and more comfortable. I asked her calmly if Aaron's father was considered consistent enough for the main table. I did not raise my voice. I did not smile either. I just asked. Her expression tightened for half a second, then returned to polished calm. She said it was not about family feelings. She said it was about status and presentation. She said her guests expected a certain level. Then she added the same idea again, even sharper this time. She said we were not the same status, and she said it like I was being unreasonable for questioning it. She said I should not take it personally, and I should just enjoy the evening. Aaron stood beside her and looked down at his hands. He did not correct her. He did not step between us. He just stayed quiet. I nodded once. I told Marissa I understood. I told Aaron I was going to make a quick call and I would be right back. I stepped out of the ballroom and into the hallway where the music became a dull sound behind the doors. I took out my phone and called Ms. Patel. When she answered, I told her I was at the private club event and I needed a change executed immediately, exactly as we discussed. I told her I wanted it clean, formal, and documented through the proper channels. I did not mention emotions. I did not mention Marissa's words. I simply said I was confirming my authority and my intention. Ms. Patel said she understood. She asked me to confirm one detail, then said she would handle the rest. She said she was already nearby. I ended the call and stood still for a moment. My breathing stayed calm. My hands stayed steady. The hallway smelled like polished wood and fresh flowers, and everything looked expensive and controlled. It reminded me that some people only respect what has a stamp and a process. I walked back into the ballroom and returned to the edge of the room. I did not go to my assigned seat yet. I did not start a debate. I just stood where I could see the planner and the staff. About 15 minutes later, I saw Kendra's face change. She was speaking to a staff member, then she looked toward me, then quickly looked away. She walked toward the club manager, a man in a formal suit, and spoke with a serious tone. The manager's expression shifted from neutral to focused. A few minutes after that, the manager walked directly toward Marissa and Lydia. His posture was polite but firm. He said there was an issue with the event authorization and the approved party for final decisions. He said he needed to confirm who held the authority for payments and approvals connected to the celebration and several linked arrangements. Lydia looked offended and asked what he meant. Marissa tried to smile and said she was the host and she had everything under control. The manager remained calm and said he needed confirmation from the authorized party on file, and he could not continue certain services without that confirmation. Marissa's smile started to slip. She looked at Kendra, then at her father, then at Aaron, as if searching for someone to fix it quickly. The manager then turned his head and looked straight at me. He said my name out loud and asked if I could step aside with him for a moment. His voice was respectful. Not warm, but official. The room around us went quieter, the way it does when people sense that something important is happening. Marissa's eyes widened. Lydia's mouth opened slightly, then closed. Aaron looked at me like he was finally awake. I walked over calmly. I did not look proud. I did not look angry. I looked like a man confirming a simple fact. The manager said Ms. Patel had contacted the club and confirmed a change in authorization. He said the file now showed I was the decision maker for the relevant approvals connected to the event support. He said he needed my confirmation to proceed with the planned services, including the photo arrangements and the final schedule. Kendra stood nearby with her tablet held tight. Her tone was suddenly careful. She asked if I wanted to review the seating and the family moments now so everything could proceed smoothly. I looked at Marissa. Her face had gone stiff, like she was trying to hold a mask in place. She started to speak, but no words came out cleanly. I told the manager calmly that I would confirm services that respected my family role and followed basic courtesy. I said I would not confirm anything that treated me like a background detail. I said I wanted immediate family seated as immediate family, and I wanted the introductions to reflect reality. The manager nodded once and said he understood. Marissa stared at me as if she had just learned my name for the first time. And when the staff began moving place cards at the main table, her hands started to shake as she realized that status was not something she could talk into existence. The manager asked me, in front of everyone close enough to hear, to confirm the final approval now. I gave a small nod and said yes, with the conditions stated. Then the main table card with my name was placed where the cameras would find it, and Marissa stood frozen beside the photo wall, unable to pretend I was not who I was anymore.